What's shaking, everybody? It's Ross Mandel here, coming to you live from Delray Beach, Florida at Scott Woolley Studios. What a privilege, what a treat you're going to get today. What a spectacular guest. I want you all to welcome maybe my oldest friend in the world, Mr. Eddie Lake. Edward.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming in. Ed Lake, I just want to say, I'm giving up my age here. 60 years ago, 60. I know for some of you it's like inconceivable. 60 years ago, my family moved to Long Island, to North Woodmere, New York. And we got my mom's dream home on 906 Cliffside Avenue, right opposite the North Woodmere Park, right off Hungry Harbor Road.
That's right.
School district number 15 at the time. And I move in with my parents and my younger brother. I'm 7 years old. My other brother's 4. And I come out of the house, and there's a young man coming to meet me. Eddie Lake lives right across the street, 911 Cliffside Avenue. Parents, Herbie and Judy Lake. What a lovely sister, Marla, and a great younger brother, Robert. So we grew up together. You remember those days?
Of course.
Tell me.
I miss them.
Do you remember us
Very
meeting
simple.
or not really?
We used to play football because if you remember, your house was next to Lenny Rubin's house, which was on the corner.
Correct.
So we had all that free grass. That we used to play football, every day, right?
Every day. And Lenny had a tetherball court in his backyard.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Karen Rubin was she became an optometrist eventually. Lovely people. Mazurskis lived next door to me. Al Mazurski still follows me on social media.
Really?
It's hard to believe, but he does. He was kosher. I thought that was a whole big deal to do that in those days.
Yeah.
They were like religious Jews. We were all sort of...
Non-religious Jews.
Well, yeah, we all knew we were Jewish, but we didn't really practice it too much.
Once we went to, got our bar mitzvah, it was kind of the end, right?
It was crazy. Now,
just so you Hebrew school, but then when you got your bar mitzvah, it was like, I'm not doing this no more.
Correct. I actually got kicked out of Hebrew school right after my bar mitzvah, so that's another story, everybody.
Rabbi Friedman?
Rabbi Friedman tried to get me back in.
Oh.
But I refused. I wasn't interested. But here's the deal, okay? Eddie Lake and I went to college together. I went to University of Maryland. He went to University of Maryland. And we have this sort of perpetual friendship and relationship going back 60 years. It's incredible. Last night we had a lovely dinner over in the Delray Marketplace at Batch Southern
Kitchen
Kitchen and Tap. And we had little waffles and fried chicken, which I have to say was pretty great.
A nice wine.
Yep, all these things that he brings wine. But here's the deal everybody should know. Here's what became a very interesting story to me in your life. All that kid stuff and the growing up stuff and all that. I get a call from a friend, a mutual friend. And I was about 31. I'm in the stock market. I'm killing it. I'm doing drugs. I'm drinking. I'm running around like a lunatic. And somebody says, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "Tell me." I think it was Greg Persky. We call him Kaya, friend of ours from the neighborhood. And he said, "Eddie is going to law school."
He called you to tell you that?
Someone did, yes. I'm not sure if it was Greg, but I think so. And I said, "What?" It could have been my mother even. I don't know.
Probably your mother.
Eddie Lake is going to law school. He's 30 years old. To me, that was like, what? It was like a crazy thing because kids go to law school when they're like 22, 23, right?
Yeah, most of my class was 10 years younger than me.
All right, so tell the story. This is a very interesting story because a lot of you, about 30 years old, don't know what you're doing in your lives. You could go to law school and become a multimillionaire like my friend Eddie.
Well, what happened with me is I was really more of a salesperson than someone who was interested in law school. So for the first 10 years out of college, I basically did various sales jobs. I represented a software company, one of the first software companies to build pharmaceutical software for pharmacies. And then I was on the road selling jewelry findings to various stores. And I went through a whole bunch of different jobs in phone systems, computers.
No garment center?
Well, that's what happened. So when I was supposed to graduate Maryland, I was supposed to go into business with my dad,
right,
who had a new company. The company was called Olivai. I don't know why I remember it. It means it should do well. It did not do well. That was about the time. It was just about the time.
What was he selling? What was he selling?
This was dresses.
Okay.
Frocks. And this was just about the time that the garment center started to move away from New York and more towards China.
Ah, okay.
And then the company, I don't know what exactly happened, but there was some type of delay in the delivery, and they lost all their money. And when I graduated college, I had no job. It was also 1980. There was a recession, and there were no jobs available. And I ended up taking a job for household finance, knocking on doors as a collection agent for $9,800
a year.
A year.
$9,800
$180 a week.
Wow.
Now, it was a long time ago, but that was still not a lot of money.
When I went down to Wall Street, just so you know,
Yeah.
I went down to Wall Street. I was, it was 1983 when I started, right? I was 26 at E.F. Hutton. They paid me $150 a week. They gave me just enough money to take the subway down to Wall Street from,
lunch.
and have lunch.
Yeah.
Correct. And I used to have 2 Nathan cheese dogs and a cheese fries and a big soda in Battery Square Park. And what they did was, at that time, was the E.F. Hutton training program, very prestigious. They paid us $150, and then we were preparing to take the Series 7 exam to become a general securities representative, a stockbroker at that time. And if you passed the test, you got no money.
Now you're straight
You go
commission.
on at like a 30% commission. And if you don't pass the test,
You're fired.
sayonara, baby. Right. That's it. It's game over. You didn't get a second chance.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, one kid in my class didn't pass, and he was crying. He came down to that. I guess kicked him out. They called security. It was like, and we took it with a number 2 pencil. And it took a week to get the score back. And they said, don't call us, we'll call you.
Yeah.
And if we don't call you,
You failed.
sayonara. And
Well, imagine the law. You know, people take the bar exam. They take it in June or July, and they have to wait till November.
the scores just came out, by the way,
Yeah.
for the last bar exam.
Well, so I'm saying that's 3 or
Right.
4 months. A lot of people in law school, they're working for, as an intern, or they're working for another firm, and they don't know whether or not they're going to have a job in a month or two.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. So I remember those were probably the most insecure 4 months of my life.
Did you pass the bar the first time?
Yeah.
First time?
Yeah.
Wow. But you were a serious man. Like you said, you're not a
I was
kid. You're
30
not
years
25.
old.
You're
And I was married, so
you
I
were like
didn't-
33 years old, no?
Well, when I graduated, I was 33.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Then you took the bar afterwards.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, I think I got to admit I was 34.
So when I was 33, I had lost 30 million, 31 million when I had 30. I was $1 million in the hole, and I went to rehab at the Silver Hill Foundation. I got sober, and then I started back on Wall Street with a $5,000 a month draw.
Yeah.
I was a guy that never made under $100,000 a month since 1980. So they gave me $5,000 a month. They had no confidence that Ross Mandel could come back without drugs and alcohol. They missed that guy. They're like, "What do you mean you don't drink? What do you mean that you don't take
Yeah,
drugs?"
yeah.
I could have got $25,000 a month.
If you were still partying.
Right, and 2 years later, they offered me $300,000 and $400,000 upfront money just to switch hats.
Yep.
And I took that money, at different times. But all right, so you're 30 years old.
Okay, well, let me back up. So what happened was I was going job to job, basically, and then I started working for a very close friend of mine who was a ticket broker. Back then there was no internet, so you literally had to call on the phone if you
Jonathan.
my friend Jonathan.
Right.
So anyway, I was their, I guess, #1 salesman, whatever. But
Were you making money?
yeah, the problem was I had some issues with his partner.
What kind of money were you making? I want the
I don't
audience to
remember.
understand.
I wish I could tell you, but I know that, I don't know, maybe I was making 75, 100K.
Okay. Back then, that was money.
I remember that. I remember the last job before law school was selling phone system, and I think I made 80K that month because I remember graduating law school. It was Avery Fisher Hall, which is in New York City.
Correct.
And there were no jobs, and I remember my mother saying to me, "Why didn't you go work for Stratton Oakmont?" Right?
Maybe a good idea.
And I'm like, this is when I graduated law school. I'm like, what are you talking about? You told me I should be a lawyer my whole life. And now you want me to go, well, there's no jobs. So I was extremely depressed the day of my graduation. It was like one of the worst days.
Really?
Yeah, there were no jobs. So what did I do? I had to hang a shingle with my partner, Steve, who I met sitting next to me, first day orientation, 10 years younger, very different background than me, and we ended up partners for 20 years. Built a nice PI and mass tort firm called Jacobino and Lake, which now he runs. And
Jacobino and Lake. It's still around?
oh yeah,
Really?
Oh, yeah.
And where is that located?
in Sayville, New York.
Sayville. Yeah. And at some point you did leave that law firm. Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, I still have ownership, but I don't have. I don't manage it day to day. Steve basically winding it down.
Okay.
So basically, what happened was there were no jobs.
Now this is what 19.
80. No, am I saying 1993?
Okay. Yes. Again, very tough times.
Oh my God! Every time I graduate, there's another recession. Okay, that's if you want to know the next recession, ask Ed when he's going to graduate
coming.
from school.
The next one's coming.
Okay, but I'm going to go back to school just so we know. Get my
Confirm it.
MBA. 2 years, you'll have it.
Okay.
Okay, so I hang a shingle. Now, why do I hang a shingle? Well, obviously, there were no jobs.
So
when
no
I say
law firms were hiring.
one law firm came to the school. First of all, I went to Toro Law School, which
Right.
at that time was on its what would they call it? The probationary accreditation, because it was only 7 years old, and under the rules, first 7 years are under probation. I'm going to back up a few. The reason I went to law school was after I had a falling out with the ticket business, which didn't
Right.
work out. I didn't know what to do. So I went back to selling phone systems because it's something I was always good at. I could make money. But I was not happy that I would have to sit around for 2 hours waiting for somebody to let me talk to them because they were too busy. I wanted my life in my own hands.
I like that.
And I used to see the commercial 1-800-Lawyers, and that was Bruce Davis. And I used to say to myself, this guy's getting a third percentage. I'm only getting 8%. I want to do what he's doing.
I get it.
Now, it was just a crazy thought in my head. Anyway, so we graduate Toro, and I was at that point working part-time for a defense firm in Long Island. And I went to get my car washed one day, and there's a BMW 7 Series in front of me. And I see a guy getting out of his car, opening up his trunk, and putting red wells into his trunk. Red wells are those big files you see sometimes that lawyers carry around that they can put all the other files.
I wish I would. I wish I didn't know.
Yeah, okay.
I've seen too many of those.
It's like I go up to him and I go, hey, I don't want to bother you, but do you have any kind of work? Are you looking for anybody? I just recently graduated law school. And he says, as a matter of fact, what I do is,
you don't ask, you don't get.
he goes, what I do is I work for an insurance company, and we have a bunch of lawyers on our panel, and every morning we divvy out the work, and you show up and you do depositions. Wow, what a great way to learn this business, right? Now, at that point, I had no mentor, no one to teach me the business. Everything me and my partner did, we did on our
You're
own.
figuring it out ad hoc,
And,
right?
Yeah, and you wonder how many times we malpractice. I don't know. Hopefully not. But I
Hypothetical.
Yeah,
Allegedly.
Yes, I can tell you I had a case once with the president of the Teamsters Union. I mean, of the Elevators Union, and I was way over my head. So there's certain times I shouldn't have done what I did.
I understand.
Okay, but you do what you got to do.
You have to
Nobody
learn.
got hurt.
You know, even a surgeon, he doesn't walk in the room and say, the OR says, how you doing? We're going to do so. Today's my first surgery.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's a reality of life.
Yeah, I remember at one of my first criminal cases, and the DA offering 6 months, and the guy, my client going, I'm not taking 6 months. And I'm like, what do I do now?
Right.
So I got him a real lawyer. Anyway,
Learning on the job, so to speak.
it was because unfortunately law schools don't really teach you how to practice.
I get that.
And part of it is I think it's territorial. They don't want to give away all the secrets, so then you're going to compete with them.
Right, why should they?
Well, because they're supposed to be teaching you how to be a
Well,
lawyer.
they teach you just enough. It's a way of thinking. They teach you an attitude, a way of thinking, a way of posturing
The
yourself.
third year of law school should be all practice. It should not.
I agree with that.
Because it's all a waste of time anyway. Frankly, the third year, most people are either doing working a job or they're on some kind of law review. So to me, and the law schools seem to be doing that more and more. For instance, Toro now they build a new school. They're connected physically to the federal courthouse and the state courthouse in Islip. So now you have a lot more students being able to witness trials, being able to participate.
That's
in
the way
trials.
it should be, of course.
Right. And that's going more and more of that because you do need the practice is getting more of law is getting more and more intricate, which means more and more specialization, which means you need more knowledge.
I will say this: the EF Hutton training program was wonderful in the sense that we spent like a week at the New York Stock Exchange, a week at the CBOE, the Chicago Board Options Exchange.
Just familiarize.
We learned about commodities. We learned about, at that time I was like, it was like a supermarket of stuff. I had an insurance license, accident, health insurance, life insurance, all these different things. But they taught us. They gave us access to the knowledge. At the end of the day, at some point I got on the phone. I had to call a guy and pitch him.
First time,
and I hung up the first time.
Yeah.
I hung up the second time. I was too nervous.
I've been there.
People say, Ross Mandel, what?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, big balls, Ross Mandel. I was sweating. I was full of anxiety. What am I going to say to this guy? And then finally, because it was a very competitive environment, I made the pitch and I got a lead, and it was like, oh my God, I can do this. I can do this, and I was shocked. And I was looking at other people saying, these guys are smarter than me. These guys have more experience than me, et cetera.
But it's a relationship business.
It's just like all business. I hate to say it, but we did have the training.
Yeah.
Now
Now
tell
you need
me
the training.
in law school, when you were coming through law school, you really didn't have the training. You learned a lot of theory and case law, and
No, there's no training. In fact, you got to take additional CLE just to figure out, even if you take property, real property in law school, they don't teach you how to do a closing.
that's shocking.
They don't.
Right.
They don't teach you. What are the steps in New York? First of all, because it's state oriented. Every state is different.
Each state has different rules and laws.
And law schools
statutes.
have kids from all different states.
Right.
So it's very hard to teach that state specific.
I get that. Okay.
Substantive law. So I think
this is very important for me because my youngest daughter, is going to law school. She's planning on it. She just got her LSAT scores, and she hit her goal. I'm not going to say this publicly.
Yeah.
So she's excited because it was her first time taking it, and she's going to take it again. And she got
surprisingly enough, they tend to be around no matter how many times you take it, even if you get a coach or not. They tend to be around the same scores. It's really because it's about logic.
Okay.
The LSATs. It's not so. It's not. I can teach you this. To take this test.
Correct.
It's common.
There's no memorization really. You have to think it through.
It's not the bar. It's not the bar exam.
Bar is a lot of memorization, which she'll do well on that.
That's yeah.
All right. So now tell us. You get to law school. What's it like? A 30-year-old guy going into law school. All the other kids are
First of all, I gave up an
$23,000
$80,000 a year job. I was just recently married, right? Maybe 2 years before.
Okay.
Years before.
What would the wife think?
Okay. Well, this was done as we did it all together. Now, my wife was working for a law firm in Manhattan.
Okay.
At this point, I think we decided we were going to move to Douglaston, Queens, because that would be halfway between Toro Law School, which is in Huntington, and Manhattan's where she worked. My ex worked like 60 hours a week. Busted her butt for years while I was in school. And I had two jobs and I went to full-time school. One job was for a judge, Judge Malloy, in Nassau County.
That's so funny.
And the other job was at this country club. And then the third job was at this law firm. So during those 3 years, I was always working and trying to juggle. At the same time, I was going through in vitro because my wife was having fertility issues.
Very stressful.
So yeah.
I've been there.
Stressful.
I've been there.
Right. So I was doing, dealing with all these things at once, but somehow or other I got through it. Took the bar. I was on the law review. I won the Oral Advocate Award one year, and so I did well. But part of it is because most of the students were 10 years younger than me. They wanted a social life. They just graduated college.
Right.
Me, crazy. I was married. I was settled. I didn't have to worry about going out. I could concentrate on what I needed to, and it helped a lot.
And I know you from your young days. You went out plenty.
Oh,
you socialized plenty. You went through the whole drug and alcohol phase.
Not alcohol, yeah, nothing. I'm not, but yeah, I did my share of.
You were in every bar I was in growing up.
True,
so.
But nobody really drank back then.
Yeah, not like.
Well, we had other things that we did in place.
Quaaludes.
Correct.
Okay,
yeah.
The Quaalude.
Yeah.
All right.
And to this day, I wonder how those bars stayed in business. Nobody bought drinks.
A lot of people bought drinks.
I guess so.
A lot of people.
Not like today,
drinks.
though.
Listen, I go to AA and I see everybody that I used to see in the bars.
Yeah,
so
I guess
everybody's
so.
I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I'm an addict. So now you're in school, and I feel like you're more mature. You're more settled in your life, right?
Yep.
And
Settled, I don't know, because I have all these ups and downs. Did I do the right thing going to school? Should I have stayed with the job I had
Exactly.
before? What do I do? Am I going to get pregnant? My wife ex isn't happy.
Right.
So
there's no
I wouldn't
money.
say settled.
But there's no money around, right? You're not making money.
Oh no, there's no money, and my family was chipping in. Her family was
Right.
chipping in. Everybody was doing so. We didn't have a bad life. Don't get me wrong.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying you weren't wheeling it.
We lived
you
in a
know.
little apartment in Douglaston, and everything was we managed.
Right. You weren't, there was no fuck you money. There's no private jets. There's no big apartment. You know what I'm saying?
No, I didn't live large at all.
Right.
And then we bought
At this point.
Yeah,
At this point.
Yeah, well, and then
It gets better.
Yeah, then we moved to Comac, built a house, new house, very nice. To this day, it's probably my favorite house. 2,500 square feet. Then I felt like I had made it. Although I was, even at that point, I'm like, how am I going to make this mortgage? Right? I always seemed to do more than I was currently.
You're a big thinker. You think big.
Yeah, but I was also, to my detriment, I need a motivation, and that tends to be, oh no, I got to do this because I have to pay for this, rather than let me make the money first and pay for the house.
Well, on Wall Street, they say, you want to buy a car, we got you. You want to buy a house, we got you. They want you to own things, finance things, because that forces you to come in and do work.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm not saying that's the
Cover your
smartest
nut.
way.
You got to cover your nut.
But that's it. And when you're, especially in sales, but even in lawyering, you're working for yourself. You're trying to bring in business.
100%.
Easy does it. Well, holy shit, I can't take it easy. I got this car payment. I got this mortgage. I got this construction
Or I
loan.
want to buy another house. Or, oh no, I
Well,
got
they keep on stepping you up. They want you to have big expenses because if you're talented, especially guys like us, will tend our income will rise to a level of expense.
That makes sense
It's
to
just
me.
an amazing thing, really. I'm like,
You have no choice, right? What are you going to do?
well, you always have a choice.
No, I mean it's either that or what? Get foreclosed or.
Right, but if you get comfortable, being comfortable in your life is considered a negative because you're not going to drive yourself. Sometimes we need the outside motivation. I teach motivation, right? That's what I do, and I've done that on Wall Street. I've done it for major corporations, Fortune 500 business, all that. I'm asked to speak, and I help motivate people that are making $500,000 a year because they got to get to $1 million a year. You never saw a more sad sack fucking room of Wall Streeters that are only making $500,000 a year, and they're like fucking pikers. And I'm up there slapping them around and screaming and yelling and, trying to push their buttons because I'm going to show them how to get to $2 million a year. It's very interesting.
But,
and
you're saying that you need the motivation. It can't just be raw.
What I say is motivation is like hygiene. I ask you, did you brush your teeth yesterday?
Yes.
Did you brush your teeth today?
Yes.
Why?
Because that's what I was told to do.
Motivation works just like hygiene.
Yeah.
There's a little switch in our brain that goes off somewhere between 3 and 4 every morning that says, fuck it. And then we have to get up, and sometimes you have to find your motivation.
100%.
And that's something that I learned a long time ago and I'm able to teach. So when you're comfortable, it's the opposite
Well,
of
people
being
always say to me,
successful.
what drives you? And my answer is fear.
Fear is a good one.
Fear of not being able to
Right.
take care of my family, not being able to live the lifestyle I want, not having the reputation. It's fear. I mean, fear is good.
Anxiety, insecurity, all these good things. These are negative things on their face, but they can be used in positive ways. And that's something that I've had to learn during the course of my life, so I teach it. I was in prison, okay? I was crushed, and still I'm living in fear for my family.
Right.
Well, oh my God, what's going to happen? When I get out, what's going to happen? I'm fucking 65 years old. When I'm getting out, what am I going to do?
Yep.
And that pressure comes from a lifetime of understanding what I need to do to be the guy that I want to look in the mirror. Because at the end of the day, when you look in the mirror and you look at yourself, that's what really should motivate. That's what you want. You want to look in the mirror and say, wow, I really feel good about myself. I'm the man. I'm the fucking man. Self-esteem.
Important.
People say self-esteem. The only way to get self-esteem is by doing one esteemable thing a day. It's like a bank account. You can't money just doesn't show up. You have to make a deposit.
Yep.
And self-esteem, being honest, being true, being a good person, helping other people, staying true to your values. That's how you build self-esteem. You lie, you cheat, you steal, you don't show up, you dog it, you lay down. That's how you remove self-esteem. So this is something very, very important. But now you're
But
in
some-
law
but
school.
it's also it builds on each other. That is, the successes give you, and I don't. Success is a crazy word, but successes give you the confidence to complete the task, so that you might be successful rather than procrastinating because you're afraid you won't. And that's
Listen,
the grind.
These
It's the hustle.
Right.
It's do it anyway. It's just
Right.
I got to do it. I'm not going to worry if it works or not. Just got to do it, and I'll worry about
Right.
it.
You know, they taught us on Wall Street. So we have customers, we have leads, we have guys that, you know, are very good guys that are easy to deal with. They lay down, you know, this and that. Then you have guys that are really difficult.
It's about customers now.
Yes, threatening to sue you or prospects,
Okay.
or both.
Don't call me.
And you have the really tough guys on the card. You know, you got to call, but you don't want to. Maybe he bought a stock and now he's down 25,000, and it's your great idea, and you don't know what's happening, and you know you're going to get lambasted on that call.
Yep.
And we would take these 5x8 cards, and we would have them, and we would put in order of the hardest calls. We'd put down at the bottom. And we'd stack them up like that, 10, 20 calls that day.
So you're
And then
building
we-
up your confidence.
And then we flip the stack over.
Oh, really? And you started with the
You
hardest?
start with the hardest because you know why? You get it out of the way. Otherwise,
Okay, and you're worried about it.
the anxiety builds.
Yeah.
The anxiety builds. So whenever I program myself, I always go to talk to the most difficult person in my business or my life first.
Makes sense.
And I do that because I want to get it out of the way because I know it's not going to be great. I know it's going to be a challenge. And sometimes I get surprised. I had one of those today, and I had a very pleasant surprise. And so, because a lot of times things are worse in your mind.
Always.
Right, always. And they are in reality.
Yeah.
Especially,
Well, I mean, not always, but yeah.
well, if you're a certain type, I think.
yeah.
I think some people just don't give a shit, and they're blessed with, I don't give a shit, and I don't care what I have, and I'm just going to go with the flow. And
Yeah, I've
you know,
always
they-
been a worst case scenario kind of guy.
Right.
Which makes me, I think, a good lawyer because I'm like, okay, so what's the worst thing that could happen?
Correct.
If I can prepare against the worst thing, kind of what you're saying, then I don't have to worry about the good things. Those will take care of themselves.
So you are a good lawyer, correct?
You have to ask clients. I
Okay,
guess.
well, it's just I want to get this out here for people that don't know you. You've managed to accomplish some things, haven't you, in that field?
We, and I say we, obviously I don't do it alone, but we've held a lot of corporations accountable for their wrongdoing.
You sued big companies, correct?
Absolutely.
And you've sued them for what they call mass tort cases, right? Someone asked me yesterday, what does a tort mean? What did
Tort
you-
is a civil wrongdoing.
Okay.
So if you hit me, that's a tort. If you get into a car accident, that's a tort. There's two kinds of torts, intentional and non-intentional. So intentional is if you come over and you punch me in the face because you're mad at me.
That's a criminal act now.
Well, that's different.
more than
I'm talking about
civil.
civil. Civil, you can absolutely have criminal and civil on the same act.
Tell me about it.
Okay. Well, you got sued by the SEC, I guess.
I had criminal and civil.
Right.
And anything else you could think
The
of.
burden of proof is lower civilly than
Correct.
it is for criminal. Criminal is usually beyond reasonable doubt, and civil is usually preponderance
Isn't that
of the
funny?
evidence.
Because my judge said I'm probably guilty.
Well,
That's what he said. I'm probably
it's
guilty of my
because-
sentencing.
Because it's
Imagine. No, that's for
preponderance of
criminal.
no. It's preponderance of the evidence.
I understand.
It's not and probably guilty. That's I don't want to really comment, but
Right.
criminal. I've always it's beyond a reasonable doubt.
That's what it was supposed to be. But in my case, somehow things got a little fugazi.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to get into it here because it's not the right forum.
No.
So
Anyway, so we have taken.
tell us, did you ever sue a company like Monsanto?
Oh yeah, we do for Roundup. Sure.
What does that mean?
Okay, Roundup is the in fact, I think it's what killed my mother, frankly, and I'll tell you that in a minute. Roundup is I'm probably going to get sued for that comment. It is a weed killer, glyphosate, and there are many lawsuits. They've settled a lot of them. They're still ongoing. Monsanto was bought by Bayer, so now it's really Bayer who owns.
Oh boy, Bayer AG.
And they're fighting tooth and nail. They want to go to the Supreme Court, change the labeling, yada, yada, yada.
What does it cause? Cancer?
Yes, two types of cancer. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and chronic lymphomatic leukemia. And why do I think my mom died from it? Because she had both. And there was a bottle of Roundup in my garage every day of my life. And she would go out
She
twice
was
a
always
year,
out there.
And she was spraying a little. No one told her not to.
I just want you guys all to know Judy Lake was his mom. She was one of the most beautiful women
Thank you.
that grew up in my neighborhood. All the boys had crushes on her, and she was even nicer as a person than she was a beauty. She was both, but she was such a beautiful person on the inside. And I remember her, outside always finagling with the shrubbery and this and that, and just a lovely person, always with a lovely thing to say, beautiful and all that.
Died too young, no doubt.
Right. Though your dad was a little bit of a different
He
type
was
of
the
cat.
opposite. He died. He got to live till 90. She got to live till
Yeah.
68.
My mom just passed at 89 years old, and it was a blow to me because I was planning to go see her on her 90th birthday.
Oh,
And you
jeez.
see, we take things for granted, this and that, but it's
You
crazy.
can't wait.
So you're suing. You basically became
Okay, I'll give you a little
big player in the
So
mass
this is what
tort
happened.
business.
This is what happened. So I graduate law school, and we're doing all sorts. As I said, I hung out my shingle, and we're doing different types of law, and we start taking in personal injury cases. And, okay, how did I get my personal injury case? I open up the law journal, and I see this little ad, and it says, "Motor vehicle accidents, co-counsel, investment required." And I called up the number, and his name was Jim Santalone. May he rest in peace. And Jim Santalone was able to get referrals from chiropractors and insurance companies when someone was in an accident, and then he would bring other lawyers in to do the work, and we would split the fee. And the idea was that we would have to pay some money up front for the expenses, and then we would get that back at the end. And I started with 10 cases. My father lent me the money. And then all of a sudden, we started to become a PI firm. I was able to get a phone number, 1-800-CONTASO, which means hit in Spanish, and all of a sudden I was getting 20, 30 cases a month. Then the person, that is an advertising broker, who got me 1-800-CONTASO, calls me up one day and goes, "Would you be interested in 1-800 lawyers for New York?" Now, at that point,
1-800 lawyers?
I had 15 years.
I want everybody to hear this.
Okay, so I'm like, of course I would like it, but I can't afford that. I have like
Right.
$10,000 in the bank. How much is it? 70 grand a month. I have 10.
Right.
So I worked out something with Bruce where basically I would get the phone number, I would get a certain amount of days to pay. And what I did was I copied Jim Santalone's method. I brought all the lawyers in. They took some of the cases. They gave me some of the upfront money to reduce the amount that I had to give to
Right.
Bruce Davis. And I was able to do that for about 15 years.
15 years, 1-800 lawyers.
Right.
It was a profitable business.
There was no
wasn't it?
competition.
None.
Maybe two guys doing it.
Right.
But it wasn't like there was no internet.
Right.
And it was
This was the only way
but
cases were
he was the
advertised.
first person to advertise
Right.
800 number, Bruce. He got it. It's a long story, but first he had 212 lawyer, and then someone said, "Hey, you should get 800," and then he had to litigate for it.
How brilliant was this guy?
Oh my God! He's a Brooklyn guy. Father
Yep.
was a cop.
Yep.
His brother said to him one day, "You should get 212 lawyer. That's when you could spell it out." And he did. He didn't do anything with it. Then the 800 number came out. He got it. He started advertising. It did very, very well. His partner got into trouble with the Bar Association, got suspended for 2 years. So he decided to subcontract out the phone number. It's all over the country.
So what kind of money was this? What kind of money did you make?
Oh, he was making millions.
Millions.
I was paying him $70,000 just for New York. He had the whole country.
Right. So what kind of money were you making at this point?
Well, you don't make money in PI for a couple of years.
Correct.
But we started to make money. The problem was the overhead. And that we had to settle quicker than we wanted to
Right.
because we had to pay the bills. And so I never got really trained as a trial lawyer. And so the bigger cases went to other firms. We were giving up a big piece. So that was one of the things I wish I could have changed. But
you were paying the $70,000 a month for 15 years, right?
Yeah.
And the $70,000 a month you're paying.
we were getting 120 cases a month. Average case was probably $10,000, $20,000 legal fee. Get some big ones every once in a while.
So you're making a couple of $100,000, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. A couple of million or no?
The firm?
Yeah.
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 But it's a contingency firm, and unfortunately what happens is you don't want to settle too quick, but then you settle, and then there's finance companies who come in and
Right.
we'll give you the money back so you could. But our problem was that we would settle to meet the expenses, and although we usually got a fair settlement amount, the insurance companies weren't scared of us because we didn't try enough cases.
But you were really known as quick settlers, probably.
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm just saying, though, that
They knew that.
it could be.
Well, I tried.
They knew you weren't going to trial.
But they knew that we were referring it out to the big boys.
Right.
And we
Okay.
had the big boys.
Right.
On our letterhead to let them know
Right.
it's
Right.
us or them. Right.
Right. Good.
But my point is
Good
that
luck.
I wish we would have given it to them and just left it alone, more cases than we did.
Well, it's like many businesses out there, because I'm a business guy.
Yeah.
if depending on how much capital you have, that's how you run your business, right? So if you don't, if you're doing things sort of on the come, sweat equity, et cetera, there's a certain way to promote your business, to organize your business, take it forward. There's another thing when you put together something and you just throw money at it, which is something I did as a Wall Street guy for many, many years. Not always the best outcome. Not always the best outcome, because then you tend to rely on money instead of talent. You instead of relying on money instead of results, because the money's there. So I think,
You got to
depending,
balance it too.
all right, there's a real balance. It's a juggling act. It's something I'm dealing with now, but it's fun.
Well, I'll tell you. So let me explain what happened, and it's on that note. So about I don't know, there was another Wall Street crash, the internet boom crash.
2000, March 2000,
Okay, that sounds about right. One day it crashed like 500 points or something.
get
maybe?
crushed.
Okay.
Amazon went from 300 to 3 in a
All right.
month.
So what happened? So before then, the insurance companies were pretty much settling easily. After that, they didn't settle anymore because they couldn't make they were making 25% interest, and interest rates went down,
Right.
and all this. Now they had to actually look at claims, and in New York, there's something called serious injury threshold, and without getting into the technicalities, it makes it difficult to recover against a third party, as opposed to just getting no-fault benefits, which anyone who owns a car has to have. No-fault benefit meaning your medical bills.
And meaning it's everybody's fault.
No, it's not about fault. It's nobody's fault. It's we're going
Right.
to give you this money for your medical benefits, regardless of whose fault it is.
Right.
It's not about right. So that's why they call it no fault. We're not going
It really means everybody's fault in an odd way.
Okay.
It's the same result. You know what I'm saying?
no one's fault.
No fault is a marketing ploy.
Okay, I guess. It's,
You know what I'm saying?
The bottom line is the serious injury threshold that is connected to no fault
Right.
makes it much harder for us to settle smaller cases, because those cases, such as soft
Right.
tissues, may not meet the criteria
Don't reach
that
the
the courts have the threshold
I get it.
for serious injury. So the insurance companies, they play hardball. So I started looking around for other areas of practice, because I'm like, this is not good here. And we're only admitted in New York, so we couldn't practice in other states. And I get a card, an index card in the mail, and it says, "Come to the Bahamas, Atlantis Hotel, and learn about mass torts." And I look at my partner, and I go, "What's a mass tort?"
There's a lawyer.
And he goes, "I don't know. Go find out."
Even I know what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm
Well,
not
now
aware.
you do, because
Right.
it's since changed. Now
I
that was
always don't.
that was the year 2002, and the reason I know that, it was the first convention was September 11th. I had to be on a flight September 10th, the year after 9/11.
Wow.
And there were two people on the flight, me and another gentleman, which I now realize was probably a marshal.
Yeah, probably.
But literally, there was nobody. But
I understand.
there were maybe 100 people showed up to the first. I think this was the second or third Mass Tort Made Perfect convention, which now gets up to 1,000 people. There's one coming up next week, as a matter of fact. It's
Right.
twice a year.
Atlantis is a beautiful place to go.
Yeah, but no more. Now it's always in Vegas. It
course
used to
it
be.
is.
He had East Coast and West Coast
I get it.
conventions, and then
Right.
he just made it
Now
all
everybody
Vegas.
goes to Vegas.
Yeah, because he thought it was better that way. Anyway, so I go to this convention and I learn all about mass torts. And mass torts is basically, instead of a single, what we call one-off case, like a car accident,
Right.
it's where a whole bunch of people have been hurt by something similar. Now, it's different than a class action because they may have been hurt in different ways. For instance,
Oh,
a
okay.
drug may cause one person cancer and another person a different injury. So they're not class actions. And
But you do create a class.
nope,
No? Okay.
they're handled as what's called an MDL, multi-district litigation.
Okay.
It's MDLs are a combination between single event, one-off cases, and class actions.
Oh.
That is discovery meaning gathering information to determine whether there's a case or not, is handled by one court, even though there might have been lawsuits filed in many districts because people live in different states, right?
Right.
But it would be too much for, in order for what they call judicial economy, it's much better to have one judge
Correct.
handling all the claims. So they devised this something called a multi-district litigation, and there's a judicial panel on multi-district litigation that determines whether a case should have an MDL or not, and which judge, and we're talking about federal court here, only, not state court,
Right.
and which federal judge should be assigned to that MDL.
Right.
Now, at that point, there were maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 pharmaceutical drug MDLs, or at least they were starting, Vioxx, Resolin, a lot of the drugs that were being put on the market due to the government allowing fast tracking of drugs after after AIDS. At least that was the idea. We needed to find more drugs on the market to cure.
We need a cure-all.
Right. All right. So anyway, I go to Mass Torts Made Perfect. I come back and I call the person who got me 1-800-Lawyers and said, I want to try advertising these pharmaceutical drugs that have been killing people. Where do you suggest I do it? And he says, the National Enquirer. I go, National Enquirer?
National Enquirer.
He goes, Ed, no lawyers ever advertised it there before. And at this point, they had a huge distribution.
Yes.
Not only did they have a huge distribution, but back then, if one person bought the National Enquirer, 10 people might have read it because people would leave it on their table, leave
Correct.
it in their
It's
office.
all over the place.
Right.
Prison, everybody's. But David Pecker's the chairman. AMI.
Right. Now,
He was an investor with me, believe it or not.
and I'm going to tell you what happened. So I put in a half-a-page ad, and it was I still have it somewhere framed. And it was like a red cross, and it was, attention, have you taken these drugs? Have you suffered these injuries? If so, you may be entitled to a substantial compensation, which I think I coined, and call this number. The next day, we had 150 faxes in the morning.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God.
Gold mine.
And so we became a mass tort law firm. Now, what happened for the first few years, did pretty well. Over the last few years, what's happened is Wall Street has gotten involved, hedge funds. And with Wall Street, it's good and bad. It does allow for those who are injured to be more aware that they have claims.
Right.
But it also, unfortunately, tends to reduce the amount that the people who do bring claims end up with, simply because the companies can only afford a certain amount of money to pay out.
Correct.
Whether there's 10 claimants or there's 250,000 claimants.
I get it.
Now, with all the Wall Street hedge fund money coming in and all these new marketing companies developing in order to get some of that money.
Correct.
What they've done is they take a collateral on your existing inventory.
Your claims.
So
Your potential claims.
So a personal injury lawyer who has all these car accidents, it's worth a certain amount of money, and then you can go to a funder, and the funder will go, okay, your
Get the money up
worth
front.
$100 million,
Big payout
we'll
later.
give you $5 million, and you go out and go get mass tort claims. That's what a lot of guys did, including myself. But because there's been so many claims.
And you made millions.
Yes, but recently there's so much.
But you made millions. So I just want the audience to
I don't really like to
understand.
talk about. I'm a little uncomfortable talking about numbers.
We're not talking
All I
numbers.
could say-
We're just
we
saying
said
millions.
millions.
Well, millions is
Listen,
it's a real number.
I've settled claims for $1 million, so yes.
Of course, but I'm just saying. Yeah. So I want the audience to understand we're not talking about a guy that made
No, well, anybody who does mass torts,
50,000.
anyone who does mass torts, you have to do,
Big.
9 figures.
Right.
Otherwise, because remember, you're doing mass. So if you have 1,000 clients, even if it's a $50,000 claim,
9 figures is a real number.
Yeah.
These are real numbers.
Now, what's happened recently, though, is a couple of things. Number one, it seems that the pharmaceutical companies have lightened up and aren't putting bad drugs on the market so much anymore.
Well, that's good news.
Although, there are claims against Ozempic and some of the other claims.
Yeah, they're coming. There's a lot coming, trust me.
Yeah. The other issue that I see is that the defense firms are fighting back because that's how they get paid.
Right.
And the pharmaceutical companies are also delay, whether it's trying to be in bankruptcy court, Supreme Court, in order to do 2 things. One, allow plaintiffs to be deceased and unable to make testimony, and to wear guys like me, single or small law firms down
run you
financially,
to the ground. Run you to the ground.
Right.
They'd never run out of money.
No,
I understand, and it's like more of a maturing industry now. When you started 20, 30 years ago, I mean, it was new stuff. You were getting quick money. It was easy settles. Nobody knew what
Correct.
was going on.
Yep.
There were huge verdicts, this and that. Now things
Well,
are...
you know, it's interesting. The verdicts now are bigger than ever.
Right.
We didn't get these crazy verdicts back that I see now all over the country for tens of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
I think the reason that's changed is that it used to be lawyers, plaintiff lawyers, especially in the during the George Bush era, were greedy trial lawyers who brought frivolous litigation.
Right. A lot
But
of that
then
going on.
I think after everybody has seen what insurance companies do to them, whether it's automobile insurance denying a claim, whether it's homeowners insurance denying a claim, or it's not getting their drugs that they need to stay alive because the insurance company or their MRI, that it's kind of shifted, and we're really not the bad guy. In fact, we are the guys who wear the white hat.
This transparency today is pulling back the curtain on a lot of these big industries and showing their issues. I just want to move it along real quick because you had your time there doing that, and now we're looking at doing another type of law.
Yep.
And I love what he had to say. It's my understanding, you correct me if I'm wrong, for the first time in history, a non-lawyer can own a law firm, at least in the state of Arizona,
That's true.
and then open up offices throughout the country.
Well, see, that's
Potentially, hold on. And we all know one of the biggest issues in the election coming up on November 5th is immigration policy. The Democrats have really maintained an open border status, bringing in maybe 10, 20 million illegal or undocumented workers from other countries, some good, some bad. Like you said, they're people, not widgets. Trump wants to close the borders and deport everybody that came in here, let's say, wrongfully, illegally, whatever the terminology is. And so immigration has become one of the key issues right under inflation. And the conservatives are selling this as a risk to our homeland security. We don't know who the hell's coming in here. And then some of the Democrats are saying these are good people. They're escaping death,
Abuse.
torture, all these different things from where they come from. We've always been the land of the free, although we have, we have a certain. Our parents all came right to Ellis Island. They came legally, and they made a great life for themselves. Hold on, but the Democrats say these people need help. Let them in. We'll work it out. We'll figure it out, etc. But either way, there's going to be a huge need, no matter who wins the election, for these immigrants, these people, these not widgets, right? These undocumented, these illegals, whatever the terminology. I'm not here. I'm agnostic when it comes to politics. But
it's about keeping families together, Ross.
Eddie makes great points. So
what do you think? I think about
so
that.
if Harris wins, listen, if Harris wins, right, and Waltz, you have a lot of people here that want to become legal. They want to become granted amnesty, they call it, and different
or a
things.
path to citizenship.
A path to citizenship, a green card, a visa, whatever it is. So they're going to need legal
They want work.
representation.
They want a work permit. Most of them.
In mass, they're going to need legal representation.
Yep.
And we both understand there is a very big shortage in immigration attorneys. How do I know? Because literally once a week I get a call. Do you know any good immigration attorneys?
Mm-hmm.
There are not. I mean, it's like people calling me now. I'm probably the last on their list.
Yeah.
They've called everybody else.
You know why that is?
Tell me.
Immigration law has traditionally been sole practitioners.
Correct. I've used them before.
And they tend to stay in their state. And it's not like the PI business where you see the multi billboards all over the place.
You're talking ambulance chases. That's PI,
I don't like that
personal
one.
injury.
I
They
don't
don't
like
like that, but yeah.
We don't chase ambulance.
But it's the thing like in the hospital, guys, all banged up. Say, excuse me, by the way, you have a lawyer.
Yeah,
And
but
there's
then,
a lot of that.
and then you lose your license.
But I'm just saying.
No, it really
that's
doesn't
the-
happen. That's.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to get into it, but no, you can't do that. Okay,
Right.
I've never done that.
I'm not saying you, but I'm saying it's in the movies we see these
the
kind of
movies.
things.
The guys who do that end up losing their license or go to jail. You can't pay off people for cases.
Right, but I'm just saying this is like a.
Listen, Ross, there are probably good guys. There are probably guys in Wall Street. I know there are who do illegal. Doesn't mean
They say I'm one of those guys.
Okay, and some guys don't. There are good guys in any industry.
Right,
You
but I'm
can't-
just saying the PI, the word ambulance chase. I'm not coining that.
Yes, but who do you think coined it?
That's 40 years old.
But who do you think would? Who's the self-interest to demean trial lawyers? Who's the only people that would do that?
You tell me.
The people who have to pay us so that we don't bring claims.
Okay.
The insurance companies,
Okay. You
big
hear that,
pharma.
everybody?
Think about it.
He's not the bad guy. He's the guy wearing
we're-
the white hat.
Absolutely,
He's
because
he's
think about this.
defending you.
We're the only
But tell us about
trial lawyers are really the only ones standing between what a big company wants to do and not, because it's trials. It's the United States Constitution that allows an individual to hold a big company accountable.
I love it.
And-
Are you a trial lawyer? Have you been?
I mean, I've done trials, but not in a very long time. So, as I was saying before, I wish I would have been trained more as a trial
I
lawyer.
see. So
if I was younger now, I would be going to a lot more of these trials universities.
Learning more.
Yeah.
'Cause it's amazing what these trial lawyers can do. What a skill set that is.
It's basically being an actor and also being
A communicator, an incredible communicator.
but you need to know you.
Right, having your presence, you got to know it all. You got to have great help.
I always was afraid that I would get a little too animated, and because I had righteous indignation.
You know yourself.
That a judge would throw me in jail.
You know yourself.
Yeah.
All right.
But
so now, tell us about this plan of yours to open up 100 immigration offices in the United States.
What we're trying to do is be able to supply representation to those who need it and who are entitled to it. Okay, if we're not necessarily talking about asylum cases here, we're talking about people who have been physically abused, sexually abused, whether in this country, if they're here now, or in their home country, and as well as family-based, that is, whether it's a child or marriage-based. We want to get as many people as we can with their documents as possible if they're entitled to them. There's been a shortage of immigration lawyers as compared to the amount of
needy people,
of undocumented individuals coming into this country.
Right,
No doubt
right.
about
So
it.
he made the point to me. Imagine his typical client now is, let's say, a woman who's been abused or harassed because they know she's undocumented, and she's lived in this country maybe 20 years. Maybe she has children that were born here that are citizens automatically, but she is still without true documents. And that's somebody who's law-abiding, who's a family woman, but who lives under the threat of getting caught, snatched, whatever the word
Deportation.
is. And deported, separated from a family.
Yeah.
And he says, these are people, these are not widgets, even though they don't have papers and they're undocumented, or they came here, let's say, illegally 20 years ago, and they have good people, good citizens today. I understand this point. And I understand he wants to do good, and to think about 100 law offices, that's a lot to think about. But when you think there's only 2 in every state,
It's not that much.
that's nothing. What do you mean that's nothing?
Yep.
And he's got a mentor that's a woman that has a big business who's an expert in this field.
Hillary Walsh.
Helping people, doing the righteous thing. They're not looking, and he says to me, a Venezuelan gangbanger, we're not interested. He doesn't come to us anyway, but we're not interested. So forth and so on.
Correct.
There's a type of person that he feels is entitled to representation and should be represented.
Well, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I got a call from someone who's been in this country for 10 years and been working under, I guess, a work visa, and now she wants to become a permanent citizen. Unfortunately, we can't help her, but that's the kind of calls we get because people want to stay in the USA.
Good people, you mean?
Pretty much everybody wants
Productive
to stay here.
people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you hear the stories, you can't. I mean, they want to. A lot of times, it's about splitting families apart. It's heartbreaking.
If you're a human being,
It's heartbreaking.
I know some people close to me that was shipped out of here to Brazil and shipped out of here that didn't have the right papers, but their kids are okay, but the parents have to leave. It's a whole big to do.
Yeah. You have to leave for 10 years sometimes.
This is an interesting story that will be an ongoing theme with us because I love this man. I know him pretty much my whole life, and he's a good guy. He's a solid citizen. He's a do-gooder. When we do argue about certain issues, he gets righteously indignant.
Yeah, I do.
We've had issues with God and family and women and all kinds of good things that people that you're friends with for your whole lives, these things happen. I want to thank you so much for coming in today. How do we reach you? How does the public reach you?
Thank you for having me. You can go to lakelawfirm.com.
LakeLawFirm.com.
Yep.
Lake like the lake.
It's my last name.
lawfirm.com. This is Eddie Lake, Edward Lake. Reach out to him if you have an issue, if you need a good immigration counsel. This guy will help you. He's a wonderful man. I want to thank you for tuning in today. Ross Mandel was saying, we'll see you soon.